Hello everyone, I am Niloofar Yazdkhasti from Iran, a museum curator, mediator, and the founder of the Museum Matters, an NGO that promotes cultural heritage. I studied museum studies and art studies in Iran, and in 2017 I moved to India to continue my studies in museology at the National Museum Institute, New Delhi. Today, I am going to present my paper entitled Community Voices and Media Choices, a curatorial engagement practice for the Iranian culture. In this presentation, I will demonstrate an online curatorial engagement practice for the Iranian culture based on a critical approach. Since July 2019, I have been blogging on a weblog and social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook titled The Museum Matters. We all know that these platforms are the places to communicate and document the passion of art, history, and science to tell stories in a way that will resonate with audiences. Meanwhile, it is important that social media should be to see it as a tool with which accomplish the owner's mission. So, the Museum Matters mission is to promote global understanding, interpretation, and dissemination of the Iranian cultural heritage based on community voices. The reason which encouraged me was a desire to interpret a more realistic picture of Iranian cultural heritage in terms of social, cultural, and political issues that come under three main categories. First, broadcasting mainly political news and unrealistic image of Iran through media. Second, misinterpretation by museums. And third, there are few online curatorial practices in English about Iran. Apart from media, those museums that have a collection of Iran, they would share sometimes the photo of the object without mentioning the name of Iran. They would mention the name of dynasty instead of the country. So, discussion of audience inclusion and exclusion should be grounded in an analysis of complex social cultural roles that museums play, and specifically in their regard to user search for shared narrative. To be an inclusive museum, the narration needs to be simple while it is creative. An inclusive museum needs to work in partnership with the society in order to be relevant based on community concerns such as social and environmental issues. I must say it is a key to success even in the digital world for museums. As here is one of the curatorial practices by the Museum Matter as an evidence during the time of toilet paper crisis. I have made and shared this post to suggest a solution for the lack of toilet paper. But apart from that, this could save our planet as well. This object, which called Uber, is still mainly used by Iranian instead of toilet paper, and there are hundreds of them available in museums across the globe, obviously in the showcase or storage. In the photo is the Shole Mustazavi, an Iranian curator of the Basis Landes Museum in Germany. Here is the significance of context becomes highlighted. The relationship between the object and its context defines as a permanent bound. In the light of this point, the curator can be a translator of the cultural resources, who needs to highlight the specific dimension of the cultural object related to its context that needs to be seen at the present time to empower the community and break the stereotype. On the other hand, a museum object may have several dimensions during its lifetime that is capable for today's demand, but in the process of musealization, it may have forgotten. So, there is a stereotype about Iran that women would wear and cover all over their body and faces, but the reality is different, as you can see the image in the top of the slideshow. There is a common narrative presented of Iranian women existing as second-class citizens in society, hidden under veils without any agency. This is far from truth. Women in Iran have been educated since 1907. So, in order to break this stereotype, there are around 14 online curatorial practices have done that include introducing Iranian women artists, artworks entitled Women Rights, presence of women in the cultural and handicraft sectors, acquisition and displaying women artworks at museums, and women artworks related to environmental issues. But in terms of raising public awareness, based on the key message by the UNESCO, museums are not just repositories of objects and artifacts, they are centers of knowledge exchange and social connection. Through the soft power of cultural diplomacy, museums foster an awareness of our shared history and transmit common values. They hold up a mirror to society, introduce visitors to alternative points of view, and foster creativity, imagination, and respect for diversity. So, in this regard, there are two curatorial practices have done. First was the breast cancer awareness, and the second one is Orange the World campaign, which is the elimination of violence against women. At last, after doing research and these practices, we need to understand, while composing interesting, informative, and entertaining social media posts is essential, it is important to recognize that these platforms offer the opportunity to speak with audiences, not just at them. And secondly, the documentation and narration of the museum object need to be reviewed and decolonized. For instance, this miniature painting belonged to Persian culture, but the museum which have shared the photo did not mention anything about that. Why? Because in modern day, in today, the School of Art or the province that artists made this miniature painting is outside of the political borders of Iran. So here is the suggestion. The idea of Iran Shahr by Dr. Turaj Daryai is capable for these kind of objects that belong to Iran and Persian culture, but now the province is outside of the Iran's political borders. Merci, thank you, and sepas. Do follow the Museum Matters.